Hello again. I tried to do this a moment ago, but I don't think I was on the right Wi-Fi connection. So I'm having a second attempt. I hope the internet connection is good. Hope it is now anyway. And I hope you people be joining me in a moment and that they can see that I'm live. So this is actually the fifth in the series. Started this on the 7th of January and I hope you're still enjoying it. I am looking into moving these, I'm not moving them, but recreating these and copying these into YouTube and creating a YouTube channel of these videos, because hopefully it will create a bigger audience of people who'd like to watch them. So tonight's topic, I've called this Building a Strong Immunity, and I've done a little bit of a play on words, calling it a bottom-up approach, a bit tongue-in-cheek actually, because the focus of tonight's talk is the fact that the bulk of our immunity lies in the gastrointestinal tract and in our gut. So there's a little bit of a play on words about that. And I thought I'd focus on this tonight because of so much media attention at the moment with regards to the coronavirus in China, and it's a little bit of a media hype around it. And I know it sounds really alarming. We've been through this many times before, but of course it's alarming when you hear of people dying. But what can we do to build our immunity? So what I want to talk about tonight is how we can actually build our immunity. If you're watching live, please say hi. Hi, Sabrina. Anyone got any comments? Please add comments and they appear at the bottom. So if you've got any questions or anything you want to say, then do let me know. So as I said, this is about building a strong immunity. It's so much in the media at the moment. I thought it was really important to focus on this. And I think a lot of people think about immunity. They might think about vitamin C, maybe echinacea, but really what can we do to build a stronger immunity for all times, really, to fight any infection that we may encounter. And it is a bit of a play on words, calling it a bottom-up approach, because I am actually talking about the gastrointestinal tract tonight. So what can we do to insure ourselves? We want to insure ourselves at all times to do whatever we can to fight infections. And the reality is, the facts are that 70% of our immunity does start in our gut, in our gastrointestinal tract, and that's particularly what I want to focus on tonight. At the end, I've got a little bit of an announcement with regards to something I'd like to invite you to join with me. I'll tell you more about it later, but I hope you stay to the end and watch this. And a little bit of a free challenge to share, to do with me in 3 weeks' time. So we talk about, in our immune system, we talk about our first line of defense. And the first line of defense is things that happen inside us to protect us. It's our very first thing that kicks in. So very briefly, although I'm going to talk on more about the gastrointestinal and what happens in the intestines and the tract there, let's just talk about what happens at the start. So every time we eat food, it may sound disgusting, but we are actually swallowing pathogens. We're coming into contact with pathogens all the time. You know, it may sound disgusting, but you know, we pick things up, they're covered in bacteria and pathogens, and no doubt, in the best will in the world, that some of that may end up in our mouths. So there we have what we call our first line of defense that kicks in straight away. Saliva, for example, contains antibacterial, antiviral and antifungal enzymes. So that's the very first thing that's going to, you know, and this of course all depends on how effective our body is, how strong it is in fighting all of these things. But when everything's working well, saliva does contain all these antibacterial enzymes. So whenever we are swallowing anything or anything enters our mouth, then that's going to kick in first of all. In our nose, in our mouth, and lining the whole gastrointestinal tract, we've got mucus, and the mucous membranes also produce antibacterial compounds. So those should kick in as well. When our immune system is strong and fighting well, those things will kick in too. Hi, Amanda. Nice to see you. Settle down and enjoy this. I hope you do. So that's happening from the mouth and the mucosal membranes. You've got these antibacterial and other fungal antiviral agents that are fighting for us whenever something hits our immune system. But of course, we're not going to capture everything there. When food moves or anything, pathogens, and I'm talking about pathogens, they're unwelcome agents, foreign invaders that get into their agents that get into the system that we don't want in us. But when they reach the stomach, which is really high up, that's when food passes from the mouth quickly to the stomach, it should be highly acidic. The acidity is there for many, many reasons, but this is also another one of what we call our first lines of defense. So the stomach acid is going to kill off unwelcome bacteria and other pathogens, parasites and other things that are passing through. They are also going to be caught there in this acid, and when that's working really well, again, that's going to attack it and actually kill it. When we take probiotic supplements, the ones that are formulated really well, they will say, they'll have a word, you may say a word that says they're enterically coated. What it actually means is they're designed to withstand stomach acid. So when stomach acid is doing its job well, then it's going to kill off a lot of this bacteria. So that's another one of what we call our first lines of defense. We have another thing that happens. There's this migrating motor complex, but there's this sweeping action, a cleansing action that takes place roughly every 100 minutes and between meals. And it's sort of it sweeps bacteria and it washes through the tract from below the stomach downwards through the intestines. And again, this is designed also to help sweep away any remaining debris and any remaining bacteria that gets caught there. And that is another thing that doesn't always work 100% well. You may have heard of a gut condition that we call SIBO. I won't go into that now, but that is thought to be due to this sweeping action that should take place isn't working well, so bacteria gets trapped and caught in the small intestines where it shouldn't get trapped. So there are lots of things happening higher up, so designed, as I said, first line of defense, that are designed, it doesn't matter what the things are, that they recognize them as foreign and they'll just go in and kill them off or produce these antibacterial agents to do that. The most important aspect, and why we talk about 70% of our immune system starting in our gut, is to do with lymphatic tissue. The lymphatic tissue is all around our body, but what it does is produce lymphocytes. So these are white blood cells, and you've probably heard of how white blood cells are there to fight infections. And if we aren't well, you may get a blood test done and it may show high levels of certain types of white blood cell, and they're raised because they're fighting some sort of infection. Now, in our intestinal tract, 3/4 of all lymphatic tissue in the entire body resides in the gastrointestinal tract, in the intestines, in the small and large intestines. 3/4 of all that lymphatic tissue. So it's really essential, and that's why we say 70% of the immune system is in the gut. So it is home to the production or the storage of lymphocytes, these certain types of white blood cells. And these white blood cells, some of them are going to produce antibodies. And what antibodies do is they recognize when there's some sort of foreign invader that's coming through the gut, coming through the system, and they recognize it as being foreign, and they'll produce what's called an antibody that will stick to it and therefore try and neutralize it, and so therefore makes it less damaging to us. So these lymphocytes, as I said, 3/4 of that lymphatic tissue is in our gastrointestinal tract. And so the production of antibodies from lymphocytes is absolutely critical. There are other cells within this lymphatic tissue that alert the lymphocytes to danger. So they also spot that there's these foreign invaders that are coming through, and they act as messengers, and they send a message back to these lymphocytes to say, look, we're on high alert here. We need to be sending out these antibodies. We need to be sending out things to try and kill them off. There are other cells that are called macrophages, and they actually gobble up and swallow and gobble up pathogens that are coming through. So this relies very much on a highly effective and working lymphatic tissue that's within the gut. We also have mucus, the mucosal membranes. I mentioned that at the start, that is in the nose and in the mouth. But the mucosal lining lines the entire gastrointestinal tract. and the mucus will also try and trap bacteria and also secretes antimicrobial compounds. Again, all of this is designed to stop these pathogens taking hold, adhering to the gut lining and causing problems for us. There's another thing that's called secretory Iga, but again, it's an antibody that's secreted from a healthy gut lining. I do stool testing with a number of my clients when I think there's problems with the digestive system or the gastrointestinal tract is impaired in some way. And very frequently I see low levels of this thing called that secretory Iga. So just think of it again as an antibody that's produced along the whole of the mucosal lining, and when it's working well, there's going to be high levels of secretory Iga that's secreted and is there to produce antibodies and effectively neutralise these pathogens that can be passing through. The secretory Iga also traps pathogens in the mucus and prevents their adherence, stops them sticking to the walls of the intestines, because we just want to get them out of the body. We don't want them staying there. As I said, that's often seen in very low numbers when I do stool testing. It's a really important marker. It's one of the first things I look at on stool testing. I don't do the stool test myself. That gets sent off to a lab to look at, but I look at the results that come through. So I can't finish this talk without talking about the importance of the gut bacteria. Of course, I'm always talking about the gut bacteria. It's my passion, it's my main focus in what I practice all the time. So whether we call it the microbiome, the gut bacteria, the microbiota, the gut flora, just to say, and I might have said this before, but I can't stress this enough, we have tens of trillions of different types of bacteria that live inside our gut. The primary site for this is in the large intestine in the colon. There are now identified about 1,000 different species, but predominantly within each of us, they reckon there's about 150 different species that predominate in each of us, and we're probably all going to have slightly different ones that are going to be the dominant ones that are predominant in us. But it weighs about 2 kilos. That's quite a lot of weight. And as I said, tens of trillions of microbes, 10 times the bacteria in our gut as there are cells in our body. Now, what is the relevance of this with regards to our immunity? So these bacteria, the greater the diversity of these species, of the beneficial bacteria, they promote the resilience and the defense against pathogens. So the research is showing that these bacteria, and the greater the diversity of these bacteria, hi Ali, we will catch up and talk about that when we meet, definitely. Yeah, these bacteria, they promote the resilience and the defense against the pathogens. We know that. And the higher the flora numbers and the higher the diversity, the less able pathogens are able to survive. They have multiple roles, but in terms of immunity, we cannot underestimate what they do. So I put a little post out this morning, and I said that the gut is like a car park. Now, if we think about when we go to the airport and to these enormous car parks that we see, which are full of cars, if we go to huge multi-storey car parks at real peak shopping times, then if we look at that and the car park, they're absolutely heaving with cars. I think of the gut as like car parking spaces. I talked about how we do not want pathogens adhering to the gut walls, but what we want to do is fill as many of those spaces with these beneficial bacteria as possible. The post I said this morning is we want to fill it with Bentleys rather than larders. No offence to a larder car, I don't think they exist anymore, which is why I said it. But we want the diversity. We want these, not just Bentleys. We want the Bentleys and the Mercedes and the Jaguars of this world. We want these beneficial bacteria, and we want to fill every single space as we can with all these different types of bacteria. So it stops these other bacteria being able to adhere to the gut wall because the spaces have been filled out. So in a way, what we're doing is we're crowding out, when we've got the right diversity of gut bacteria and we've got good numbers, we are actually crowding out and preventing the ability of these other strains of bacteria being able to adhere to the gut walls. Not only that, but these bacteria just improve the overall environment within the gut. And they also increase this word phagocytic activity, basically being able to destroy these cells. Some of them can bind to viruses and disable them. So, the numerous roles they have, but this diversity is what it's all about, and increasing numbers. So how can we support the gut bacteria? How can we increase diversity? Just a couple of quotes here. The number of plant types in a person's diet has the strongest effect on the diversity of the gut microbiome. So effectively, the more types of plants-based foods that we can get into our diet, then it's going to have the strongest ability to increase the diversity of the gut bacteria. That's the first thing to say. And the second thing I have heard about from several prominent experts in this field is, in terms of the diversity of plant food that we need to eat, I've heard 40 different plant foods a week. But one thing I heard today, Rob Knight, who's a director of the Center for Microbiome Innovation in California, but he says that we need to be eating more than 30 types of different plant foods every single week. And when we do that, it has a stronger effect than an antibiotic in terms of fighting infection. The reason why is because these different plant foods feed our good bacteria, and each one of those plant foods is going to feed and help to grow different types of bacteria. As I said, we've got all these different species of beneficial bacteria, so we want to be able to increase their numbers. And the way we do that is not just saying, oh, well, I eat lots of vegetables, but it's all peas and carrots. It's about the diversity in what we do. We need to be eating at least 30 different types of plant food every single week. Now, that can seem like a massive challenge. And what I'm going to do, week commencing the 24th of February for 5 days, I'm going to do a 5-day 30 in 5 challenge on a closed Facebook group. It's going to be free, and I really hope you're going to join me. So that's week commencing the 24th of Feb, Monday to Friday. It's going to be a 30 in 5. So I'm going to see how all of us, it's not just you guys, it's me as well, how all of us can think about how we can increase the diversity of the types of plant food that we eat in those 5 days. Can we actually do it in 5 days? They say 30 in a week. Well, can we do it in those 5 days? What can we do to achieve that? So I'm going to be putting up some recipes. I'm going to be giving you some tips. I'm going to be going live every single day with a few hints and tips and a bit of video to encourage you. There'll be the ability in that closed Facebook group to be just sharing your own recipes, saying what you've done to encourage one another. And I'll be putting some different handouts in there as well. So I hope you will join me, because I think this is something that we all need to be thinking about. But when we say, God, 30 plant foods in a week, that just seems too challenging. But I want to set the challenge for us at the last week in February to actually do that. I'll put some more posts up here on Facebook and show you how you can sign up to do that with me. And I hope you join me on that week commencing the 24th of February. Hopefully we can have a bit of fun and not make it too difficult and too challenging. It will be a challenge, but I hope it will be a fun challenge. And I hope you all enjoy it and realise that these things are achievable with just a little bit of effort, but without making it too difficult to do. So with that, I think that is taking up enough time of your evening. Again, I hope you find that enjoyable. Any comments, let me know. Anything you'd like me to talk about and focus on next week, please let me know. But other than that, I will be putting some information out there about this 5-day challenge at the end of February, and I really hope you'll join me in doing that. Thanks a lot and take care. Have a good evening. Bye.